This is Cursed Bro. Cursed Bro was created with a few setbacks that regular Dark Souls 3 characters rarely experience. For example, his health drains every second from his Symbol of Avarice if he doesn't consume a steady flow of Estus. He's much more squishy, taking 2 times the amount of damage from everything due to the Calamity Ring that's sealed to his finger. Additionally, another ring is also sealed to his finger, the Dust Crown Ring, decreasing his total health by 15%. There's other small quirks about him, such as sensitive skin, not allowing him to equip any armor whatsoever, and due to a contract his parents signed at birth, there's no way for him to invest stat points into health or endurance for his entire lifespan. Cursed Bro is an absolute roller coaster, giving you a timer on how quickly you must defeat the bosses, but also how creatively and quickly you can get to them. I believe almost no one will guess which boss actually killed me the most on this particular challenge, but as usual, leave your guesses in the comments, and oh, we're definitely slaying every single boss in the game. Make sure to hit that notification bell to never miss future videos, and subscribe if you haven't already. So as we are starting off here, of course, the name Cursed Bro is essential. We're also going to pick the warrior class because I need a boatload of damage since there's a ticking timer on a lot of the actions we're going to be doing in this run. I was thinking for starting gift, since Cursed Bro has all these disadvantages, why would we have a starting gift? It has to be absolutely nothing. There can't be any kind of item we start with. And as far as his appearance goes, if you want to get a closer look, this is exactly how that is. Just a quick recap, we are going to be using the Symbol of Avarice, the Dust Crown Ring, and the Calamity Ring for the entirety of the playthrough. The rings can never be taken off. Symbol of Avarice, if it does get taken off by me fumbling around in the menu for whatever reason, I have to immediately kill myself or homeward bone to the most recent bonfire, deleting the progress we're currently working on, as something that would be kind of fair. There's going to be tons of situations where maybe if I slip up, I wouldn't have died anyways because I wouldn't have a low enough amount of health to die in the next few seconds. But either way, I think that's a nice safeguard. And with these 3 items, let's start. I would say bonfires are more important than ever. Even the small ones out of the way, hitting them gives you a little bit of a refresh of your health and gets us back on the right foot, especially when the Estus flask count is still at the bare minimum. We're obviously going to be increasing those too, but getting to Gundyr already was a little bit sweaty, and by the time I made it to him, I realized we really do have to kill him fast. Luckily, the warrior's battle axe starts with the Ash of War or weapon art, Warcry. That boosts our attack right away with a buff that doesn't need to be applied via resin or any kind of magic, and also because the battle axe is pretty hefty, it does stagger Gundyr. I utilized this as best as I could to just pummel him into the ground, and phase 2 came very, very quickly because of this. We had just enough time to be able to get him, and right after that, we're heading right to Firelink Shrine. It's kind of nice to have a first try under the belt, but can we set up every single thing we need to get started with the High Wall of Lothric before dying right in front of Andre and the Handmaiden? That'd be kind of embarrassing. Even though I grabbed that blue flask, we're going to turn it into a regular Estus right away because we don't really need the blue bar on this run for anything whatsoever. As many Estus as possible is the play. Obviously, the dagger to dash through water quicker is even more important than normal because going through water slowly is something we can just not afford. Also grabbed a little bit of fire bombs and some poison moss just in case the poison does add to the decrease of health, which of course it will, and there's not much to mitigate that. So with that, let's go and start High Wall of Lothric. The path up the staircase with the door is a little safer in my opinion because it's more of a guaranteed shot to make it through without getting hit. And as you might remember, the Calamity Ring is going to double the damage of the enemies. This also plays into the fact that we have no armor on, and also counter hits will give you more damage by default. So if we get a no armor counter hit attack that's heavier from a basic enemy, it will kill us in one hit. Eventually, you'll notice this does become almost a one-shot simulator as well. Thank God there's the bonfire up on the tower wall as a little bit of a halfway checkpoint so we can descend back into the lower areas without as much of a panic. And yes, there is an Estus shard on the anvil in the room with the dogs and the key to Grey Rat. I'm not actually going to go for that right now because I feel like there's too much traversal to get to it, and there's so many things that could go wrong where I could get hit beforehand that we would just be wasting time. I also calculated in my head, I believe we could get Vort's shortcut and then still make it to him and kill him in time, but let's see how close that is. Now, usually Emma we would kill for the small Lothric banner to be able to go and hold up to get hoisted over into Undead Settlement, but there's no chance I'm going for Emma right now. I'm definitely just going to Vordt. With the lightning pine resin we grabbed in that window earlier, it does make quick work of Vort's health bar, hitting pretty chunky damage. But this is where we have a little bit of mind games come into play, where you're rushing so fast, and maybe you do have the skill and you know the strategy to kill Vordt fast, but you could just unaccount for a lot of different things and slip up. And slip-ups are the name of this challenge. You can't be caught lacking at the last second when you're about to win, and then you got to do all that stuff again because you were way too quick. You got to kind of gauge the right speed and move smoothly. This is something that, well, it doesn't exist in a lot of the challenge. It's something I had to learn throughout the process of this entire endeavor. What we're really looking for is a lot of opportunities to be outside the hitboxes of Vort's attacks while simultaneously trading damage with him and not getting scathed. So underneath his stomach is really good, other than when he plunges his hammer down in front of him for any slam attack, or when he transitions into phase 2. Once he's in phase 2, all we need is one frost breath, and we can kill him. Unfortunately, on the first attempt, though, I was a little too eager, and the amount of stagger the battle axe did actually knocked him out of the animation, and then went into the harder moveset that are the melee attacks. What we would have wanted is to wait until he sprays the frost for just an extra second, and then he would have been locked in with a full amount of poise, not able to be staggered until he's done that animation. This time it's the same recipe, just a different chef in the kitchen. Now what do? Well, we got the bonfire right away popping up when he dies, which is nice. It's kind of courtesy. There are some games in this series where bonfires are very far apart, and Dark Souls 3 does have a plentiful amount. Some would even say some that don't make any sense at all, which you'll see later. But in this run, that actually helps a lot. So let's hit Vort's bonfire, go back, kill Emma, or as we call her, Grandma sometimes. In this run, we can just call her Emma because I don't think that Cursebro has much family at all. I think they abandoned him. Unfortunate. But you know what? We got that orphan power. Since the soul count is something that's a little bit more fragile in this, and dying is a lot easier, after Vordt, leveling up as much as we can is pretty important. As you might know, Cursebro can't level his health or his endurance. We can only gain health and endurance through items. That will be figured out later, but for now we're going to put all of our points we can into strength. The plan here would be go get these skulls from the dog because alluring skulls are going to be needed for a lot of stuff in this. Those are the first ones we can actually grab. The dog is going to have to be tiptoed, which is going to slow us down a little bit. But as soon as we escape that area, we can go to the side of the wall where the lever is normally pulled and the dogs kill the workers. Luckily, in this iteration of doing it, they did not see me at all whatsoever, so there wasn't even a slight chase. The gate slams down and we're able to actually secure the next bonfire safely, even with that worker not trying to attack us while we're sitting, which is beautiful. That's actually absolutely perfect. At this point, this is where I realized we really do be speedrunning out here in 2026. There's nothing like just going through Undead Settlement and ripping it apart like a flame trail from an Irithyll dungeon pyromancer. I don't know, I was trying to come up with something clever there. Hey, technically there is that one guy in Irithyll dungeon that's from the upper Irithyll areas that does the flame trails right before you go into the dungeon, so that counts. We're going to get the Estus Shard over by the Evangelist here, skipping Loretta's Bone, obviously grabbing some buffs previously, and then going into the lower area with the shack. The cage guy scared the shit out of me here. That was actually terrifying because I'm just so focused, and not even joking, my heartbeat was so much quicker the entire time I was just running through basic stuff on this, trying to do it perfectly the first time and really not lose steam. I figured trying to grab all the regular Titanite shards is kind of useless, so that back alley Titanite shard is skipped. We're going to go straight through the middle path, just barely getting hit by Dory's gnawing from the Evangelist above on the bridge, and then I'm going to skip off to the right where the Crystal Lizard is here, Very carefully falling down the scaffolding so I don't take too much fall damage. As you might know, fall damage adds to the total pressure of everything we're doing environmentally. Luckily, there is the bonfire down here that spawns in Aldrich, and we can just skip over that whole area, do the little scoot up the rock to get the ashes in the graveyard, grab this bone shard over here, also on the island, and oh, you guys might remember, we didn't pick a starting gift, which means the giant in the tower is not our friend, and we can be hit by the great arrows. But by some grace of the god Miyazaki himself, not a single arrow even came across my path to a degree where I was concerned. And that's also black magic, just like getting into Settlement very clean in the initial part. I don't know what was going on here, but I'm just going to take it and go with it right now. There's absolutely zero chance we're doing Curse Ride at Greatwood, so I'm not even going to turn the camera in that direction. We're just going to the door and getting that bonfire at the latest point before the mini bridge. Even the mini bridge itself feels a little bit antsy because all those dogs and the workers and that one evangelist, they take so long to get across the bridge. You even have scenarios where they get stuck on some sort of collision, a tiny rock on the corner perhaps, and they just lag behind, and they're not all moving in unison, and there's so many different variations of how they can get stuck and jumbled. I started to get impatient, and I was like, you know what, even if a dog chases me, let's just go for it and see. We have the bonfire, we're 2 seconds away. So I dropped down a little early, and I grabbed the ember as well. Whew, that was very close. And then, of course, we have the two dudes with the saws chasing us and the door where we have to open it. But this is where we have a funny situation because on the door, if they're both behind you, they could frame perfect you as you roll out of that animation once the door is cleared. Obviously, you have invulnerability on the door, but the second after you can die. So luckily, that did not happen either. But they did chase me into the area where Sigurd pops up on the lift. So I was trying to wrangle them in a circle around and try to get to the button as quick as possible. As soon as the button was secured, it was just the Outrider Knight, the Ember in front of that, and then obviously the Halfway Fortress bonfire, which is kind of nice because all that other stuff running through is much harder than most things after it, probably all the way past the swamp, I would say. You may remember last time that we did a challenge on DS3, I forgot the Flynn's ring right away, and it was grabbed later on, but in this, because we only have 2 ring slots available, not only is the Flynn's ring important, but the ring that's shortly after it, Chloranthy, is also kind of nice. See, that is going to help us increase our stamina without having to consume anything or put extra equip load on the character with Grasscrest Shield right away, so then we can actually make it through the areas measurably faster, I would say by the magnitude of multiple seconds each time. Getting through past this demon, leaving Sigurd behind, and I don't even know again how I matrix through the double evangelist, the multiple dogs in this rooftop section. All I can say is once you get to the actual door when you exit, I always look for the double horizontal swing because one goes through the wall and can hit you and also knock you off of the ledge all the way onto the ground. And if you aren't dead from that, you might get killed by the demon. In this one, even if we lived from the first hit, we would die from gravity, so it would just be a crazy combo. We'll want to go up the stairs here, fall down the tower, and it's looking close. It's looking really close. This is the first death where I couldn't even homeward bone. I lost the souls. I got exactly every single item we needed, but this was just a taste of what was to come. Something else we can do that's super important for setup right away is going and turning in that Evangelist Estus Shard and the Bone Shard from the island with the Giant to get our extra flask equipped and every sip to be a little stronger. And then we're going to go on the roof of Firelink. Of course, we're going to be gunning for the Silver Serpent Ring to boost all of the souls we absorb. One thing Cursebro has as an upside that I didn't talk about in the beginning is Symbol of Avarice also stacks with that, increasing the soul count, so we have a little bit of a buffer, at least in that department. But along the way, where we trade to the Crow, we're going to drop a Black Fire Bomb and a regular Fire Bomb for respective materials that we can use later, grab the additional Estus Shard off to the left, and we are on point. Crucifixion Woods is very easy as long as you don't linger around these birds. Honestly, there's nothing to worry about that. We just want to touch down where Henri is over here and Horus. Maybe say hi. maybe just give him a wink. You know what, we don't have time to gesture. And then this cliffside that I normally fall down the steep part of, it's a no-go. I'm going to have to go down the part that's in the middle, kind of saving a little bit of time, but not taking too much damage. Wrangle these guys with the pokey sticks. And once we get to this part where we drop down to where the dog is before the bonfire, I decided I want to sneak up on it. So I started to tiptoe, realized it wasn't looking at me, and then I got to the point where I'm like, okay, this guy's chasing me. He's trying to stab me off screen in the head with this giant stick. I might as well speed up a little bit, and the dog is going to probably react at the same time. Luckily, what it did, though, is it allowed me to at least light the bonfire without it being completely restricted. So that's good, because we can just warp back to it later. I was going to drop down where the Grasscrest shield was, and then Mr. Krabs just decided to be a jerk. And that's perfectly fine, because Mr. Krabs hasn't gotten me for a long time. He deserves at least 1 point. He's been trying really hard this season. We'll give it to him. With Grasscrest Shield in the inventory, we can definitely use that later, but one thing that's super important on this run, more than any other thing that I've done in Recollection actually, is being under 30% equip load. This is going to make the stamina come back faster, it's going to allow us to do the longest roll animation, and all these little measurements are going to add up in every single increment that we're trying to get through with the health drain constantly ticking down. You may notice we're also on the way to the Farron Coal, and I did grab the Sellsword Twin Blades, but that's actually just a late April Fool's joke. I'm not using the Sellsword Twin Blades, screw that. We're going to grab the Farron Coal, get out of there, and then now it's actually time to go for the weapon of choice. Well, first we got to deal with the roly-poly guys over here who decided to just rough me up a little bit. I think they wanted my lunch money because I had extra milk tokens. You know what? That was actually just a ruse, because as they're going to get their milk cartons, I'm going to dunk them down the ladder, and the one in question that actually died first has the weapon that we want, which is the curved Exile Greatsword. This is my top 3 favorite weapons. It's right behind the Sellsword Twin Blades and the Grave Warden Twin Blades. It's my 3rd favorite weapon. It is actually something that I would have beaten the game hitless with originally, but because of a guy that's French named David Tanker that pioneered the whole Sharp Gem Twin Blade combination for the Challenge Runner side of things and introduced us to the crazy damage that we call OK David damage now, we decided to switch off the Exile Greatsword, but me and some other people were going to actually originally use that. And so not only do I love it for just how effective it is in challenges, but it has also one of the best running attacks, in my opinion, for a Greatsword, which will also mechanically come in handy for certain things later. Now we're tasked with Poison. Poison without being able to put on any armor to stack resistance whatsoever. And sure, we could go back and we could level resistance a little bit, but why would we waste stats on that? That's just stupid on Curse Bro. I don't think that's a thing that we should do. I think we're going to have to unfortunately subject ourselves to a little bit of poison, but you know what? We'll use the islands, and we're going to go in order from island 1 to 3. And so we'll grab the Estus Shard immediately. We're going to go and light the fires as quickly as we possibly can, and because we did actually stock some purple moss in the beginning, I can mitigate some of the drain as long as I do this fluidly. Otherwise, we're probably going to be going back and grabbing more of them, which I don't want to do at all. And so this is the sequence of how that worked out in every single engagement I had along the way. Luckily, we did actually make it to the bonfire over here. And then right before the Slug Chapel, I was like, hey, you know, I could just drop down. I could get this shard, mosey over there. And, you know, they're not paying attention. Maybe I could just sneak in. See, the thing is, slugs are kind of like octopus in the ocean. They're majestic creatures. They're obviously from another planet. And even in this game, they're basically the Great Ones in smaller format to make you think that you're way more superior, but it's actually just a trick. They are 4,000 IQ and above all, so don't screw with the slugs. And while you're at it, if you want to go and do anything to them, use fire, because for whatever reason, their weakness is fire. Anyways, we're going to go and try to get to that final island right here with Tree Stump Men and see if we can avoid being completely smashed to a pancake. Grabbing some stuff along the way, of course, and doing our best to make sure the poison doesn't get us before that flame is lit. I can safely just skedaddle around the corner where the rocks are, fall off beside the tree, and homeward bone just to save some time, because there's probably a low chance we're going to make it back in one piece. And then there is some more things to do as side missions before we actually go and challenge Abyss Watchers. We did grab that bone shard from the Slug Chapel, so that's a good increased amount of strength for the Estus. But up this ladder over here, we have Farron Tower. Typically, Farron Tower is either just to challenge the rip-off Stray Demon from DS1, or just grab other types of materials like the lizards that are all scattered all over the place, and that's exactly what we're going for. At the very, very end of the other side, where the Stray Demon does not exist, up the staircase and around some enemies, there is a lizard that has the heavy gem. Now, when I went up here originally, I forgot that's the one that has it, so I killed the other ones. And then I made it to the point where we almost got him, and I think this was just a simple case of greed, unfortunately. So coming back the second time, I decided to take out the guy that killed me first at the same time as the lizard was running by him, so I still had the timer on my side for the lizard, and I got him before he faded out, got the heavy gem. And the way I did it was just so smooth that I think that the other enemies that witnessed it just were like, you know what, we're going on lunch break. I'm not actually even going to try to kill this guy. Because they started to approach a little bit. They were just like, you know what, nah, I'm good. And we asserted dominance, which is kind of cool for Curse Bro because he's never done that before. Now we're going to go back and get set up for Abyss Watchers. So for people familiar, or even just checking on the stats on screen, you'll see that Exile Greatsword does not meet requirements. We need 16 dexterity, and that budget's a little bit steep to try to bridge the gap of right now. So I'm just going to completely forego even using this weapon for Abyss Watchers just yet, and we're going to go with the Battle Axe. But because I have some Titanite gathered, and I want to save as many souls for optimizing that weapon and the amount of damage I can do, as well as one other factor that we're going to talk about soon, I really can't afford to upgrade the Battle Axe. 0 upgrades, no infusions, and we're going to ride on the Spirit of Fumes, Resins, and Warcry. That's pretty much it, and also just unadulterated speed and action. So I'm going to grab Farron Keep Perimeter over here to the right-hand side where the Dark Wraith is, try to sneak back and grab this Ember, and then, for whatever reason, I thought this item on a hill was of interest, but it wasn't. And that guy just, I don't even know, man. He gave me the WWE Smackdown to the maximum, even off of that little rock right there. The way I died, that was a tasteful kill on his part. So now trying to avoid that the second time, going back to Abyss Watchers, it's just basically going to be backstabs as usual. And the heavy attack from the Battle Axe is a little slow. So if I charge it up when they still have iframes, by the time it connects, it still will stagger with them being turned on an angle where I can escape. You don't want them facing you, because that means that they will actually outrange you with their next combo if they choose to do something big, and there's no way to get out of there. So I want them to be on a diagonal angle at the very most, not even sideways if I can manage it. So we're going to be doing early heavy attacks, no charge on them at all, as a wake up after the backstab. As usual, we're going around the outside of the arena, but we're also trying to draw the clone away towards us, have the human Abyss Watcher fight Reggie, our red-eyed buddy. Vice versa is fine, but typically I find that this flows better because the clone can die very quickly, and then we can go back and double team, or at least be ready to put the big damage back down on the main Abyss Watcher once Reggie dies. This is simply the most terrifying Phase 2 Abyss Watchers I've had in recollection. I don't know what else we've done, even in years' time, where I've just been sketching out more than this. Also, again, just because I feel like there's some time pressure, I want to make sure I'm fluid on this. I want to do it within one sitting was the goal originally, even if that wasn't going to happen. I was still trying for it. So, yeah, there's a lot of really, really close calls here where the AoEs that explode are just barely touching me. And another thing to note, too, the controller I was using for this challenge, though it didn't give me too many problems throughout, the left stick was starting to go bad, where when you try to do the up direction, it just cancels the direction, and you have to be very gentle with how you do everything. You might even see some fumbles where the character just stops moving, or he starts to do like a little bit of a tiptoe randomly in situations where he'd stop. But either way, I was just dead set on using it. I'm going to buy a new controller after this one, don't worry, guys. That was a very, very scary fight, but we got it. I feel really good about that, actually, which usually there's not much of a feeling for Abyss Watchers. It's fun, but it's novelty. And now we secure that bonfire so we don't die and get ready to go into the Catacombs. Anytime there's a little contraption that opens and it takes some time and there's a bonfire right beside it, you're going to see me basically activate the contraption, go back to the bonfire, and then go and then run through wherever the contraption is, because I'm not waiting those seconds, losing that health, and then not actually replenishing it for free. That would be kind of silly just in case we have some sort of situation. And there's also a lot of gravity we have to go through. We have to fall down ledges. Let's go and see if we can challenge Wolnir now. I'm not going to say too much about this other than I think that the cursed ball that has the bone shard was played so well on this run that I've never done it better in my life. There's just nothing that's been crazier than this. I didn't think I was going to get it. It just look. Crazy lucky. And again, waiting for it to go back and forth, even if those skeletons were dead, is such a costly thing that I don't want to do those things. So it works out amazingly. I'm going to skip over Karthus Milk Ring. We don't need the boost in dexterity, because once we meet the requirement of 16 for Exile, we're good. And I'm also not going to go jump across to get extra large shards or bleed resin where the actual scary skeletons are on this gap, nor will I go through the invisible wall over there, because I'll probably die every single time. We're going to go up where the small rats are to the other bone ball, get the bonfire over here, grab our shard that we need, and then on the way to Wolnir, while sneaking around this ninja Keanu Reeves skeleton that's basically John Wick 5 and can see you through walls and also just, you know, employs the power of the rats to be able to get you. Smoldering Lake first isn't quite necessary on this, just because with the heavy gem on the Exile sword, some strength already invested, and +4, it's kind of like the equivalent of having a higher upgraded weapon on level 1. So this should be perfect for Wolnir. And as you can see right when we roll in, boom! Bracelet down, and then, you know, we got to wait for him to readjust his hands a little bit. So I'm only really looking to not get touched by the Curse Fog, since it's going to be double the normal damage. It ticks twice usually when I'm in the boundary of it within a second or two before you can move out of it, and so that double tick could just completely take me out, especially on an odd chance where you guys might not even have thought of this. If we're in between combat, we're in the flow, you know, that health can get down as low as a quarter because I'm just focused on trying to be aggressive. And there's no point of continuously chugging in between, because it would cut the actual total amount of healing ability of the flask short, meaning that our total amount of healing over time for the flasks would actually be nerfed by even sometimes 50% or more, which is useless. That's like literally using half the flasks. So we want to make sure that when we heal, that sip is actually perfectly going to the end of the bar as much as we can. Next to the skeletons being summoned, anybody else just absolutely hate when Wolnir pulls the sword? I feel like there should have been some sort of mechanism where you could still challenge him and kill him quicker. Maybe that there's some sort of way that the bracelet on the other hand comes back, and if you go across the arena, you get an alternate moveset, but you can still constantly lay down damage on him if you want to in between the swings, rather than waiting for his hand to get to the ground. It kind of turns into like a flying dragon situation or something. Of course, after Wolnir is dead, we want to boost the soul count by swapping on that Silver Serpent ring, stacking it with Symbol of Avarice, getting a juicy soul count, but unfortunately this won't matter, and you'll see why. We're gonna go to Smoldering Lake and get some extra large shards so we can get the Exile sword, at least up to +7 for now. And down this bridge we go, past the demon, grab some shards, and we're doing our normal route through Smoldering Lake, so there's nothing special to see here. I'll speed this part up for you. We get the Shield of Want where the worm is, and we even actually kill the worm because I want an extra bone shard early. Every single one we can stack earlier is better. Doesn't mean that the total amount we're going to get is all of them in the game. It just means we want to front load them. So I'm going to sit in our spot here. We're going to get the worm to die, but look how close the health is. And yeah, we have no flasks left. Couldn't make it to the bonfire after. We got everything done, but we died. Luckily, the one that is right before this area is very, very, very close. So I'm just going to run around the perimeter, and actually, we could even say this is a bonus because there is a shard that the worm kind of protects that I can just use. So I'm going to go grab that one, and yeah, I just decided to completely brain fart on the timing of the ballista before getting the soul and getting the item. That sucks. So that's, what, 49,000 down the drain? So yeah, that's gone now. We can't use that at all. There's only one way we can solve this. Originally, when I was setting out to do this challenge, I kid you not, I was literally just going to go and do any percent, just the mandatory bosses. But this is the turning point where I'm like, we need some backup souls. So why not challenge Old Demon King? We're over here. You know, there's other smaller bosses in the game too. But Old Demon King seems like a good thing to do now because it could make up exactly what we need or more. And then, you know what? I was like, we got to do all bosses. So this was a good thing. Thank you so much, Ballista, for killing me. Thank you, Worm, for taking so long. And the health drain, you sponsored this all boss run. +4 would be fine for the Exile Sword on ODK, but you know what? We're going big. I want to hit him super hard. I want to hit him so hard that arthritis in his knee, you know, and the left ankle just acts up so heavily he thinks the biggest thunderstorm of all time is coming. I want him to feel the aches and pains. So we're going to go get the +7 like I was talking about. Some other stuff in Firelink, and let's go back and see what's going on here. Compared to the last challenge we were doing with the level 1 character on the max new game, this damage is astronomical. And the Exile Sword's not even that slow either, because as you guys might remember if you played the trilogy, this is the game where big weapons, especially the ultra great weapons, get very quick compared to how they were before, almost kind of being competitive even in PvP against dexterity weapons. So that's amazing. And also, I wanted to put on a little bit of a better show for Old Demon King because I just embarrassed myself on him on that level 1 run, getting so greedy trying to frostbite him and everything. So we're going to play this as safe as we can, even though it's a little bit of the antithesis of trying to not die to health drain. We'll see if we can keep it in the pocket and make it count. The main thing I want on Old Demon King is mainly just the Lava Spew, but he wasn't doing it that often. There's even some moments where it looked like he was going to try to. And then I think he forgot where his glasses were because he turned around and ran away. And then he found me again. So I have no idea how to explain that. But typical Old Demon King things, he's kind of weird. Biggest thing is I also don't want to get stuck in the hammer because if he slams down and somehow I actually do survive, you can get trapped inside of it. You're guaranteed dead. There's other little things where if you hit him on his rear quarters, you get chip damage. because he moves back and it almost counts as if he lands on you from above you. And that chip damage is going to be doubled too. So at a point where maybe my health is lower and I wanted to be aggressive and kill him, didn't heal yet, boom, it's probably rip. Played all that very nicely, and I got back the souls I lost at the very least, even though technically later on we would kill him anyways. It's kind of nice to have them right now. Purely from the excitement of how much damage we did on Old Demon King, I thought it was only right to put even more stats in the damage as we're starting to slowly get up to the soft cap, which is I believe around 40 strength, because this weapon really does go beyond. It goes to about 60 strength and keeps increasing. At that point, it's going to diminish quite a lot, but I've seen gains when I originally tested this weapon for hitless up to the stat of 60 strength. So that is my end goal, getting as close as I can to that while also managing the equip load. And now it's time to try to do Dancer early, since, again, damage is on our side. All of those Titanite chunks we can use to get +9 are behind her in barracks, so she is the option to go with now. Dancer's typically challenging on a first playthrough, but still makes you sweat a little bit if you don't pay attention normally. And this is where we can employ the power of Stagger to interrupt a lot of the attacks she's even going to start doing in the first place. I love this. It's even funny just because we can literally take her out of her phase transition if we wanted to, which, just look at this fight, it's so aggressive, but it's still calculated enough where when we get those recoveries and she does stumble a little bit, we get back to a position where we have the advantage, and it almost kind of makes it safer to have such a slow swinging weapon in comparison to how quick you could actually get with some of the crazy fast weapons. And again, it's not super slow, but this also kind of buffers just the differences with how much the stamina cost is and the animations. Now we get to the point where we're about to win, and I got a little bit too lost in the sauce, unfortunately. I was so excited to win that in my mind, I actually really wanted to go for the weapon art where you spin around and everything, but it just wasn't fast enough for her next attack that could punish me. So a little silly, you know, but hey, you know what? In spirit, it was kind of cool. I did it for the culture. Not a lot of people are using that attack these days. Let's try to keep it in the mix, right? This time, though, with this fight, it was more of the same up until that point where we were getting the finishing blow. I'd say Dancer on this run is a double-edged sword, where obviously if you get hit by her in general, it's over. You do have to do her hitless for the most part. The thing is, though, if you're pretty decent at doing her perfectly, because she's always just right in front of you, as long as you're trailing her, you're never really at a loss of damage per second. You can deal it very quickly, whereas enemies that are really far away or make you go really far away very often, they have that time disparity. So she doesn't really fall victim to being a very slow fight necessarily. She's actually an advantage. One quick trip to Firelink for some upgrades. And then going through King's Garden, grabbing the extra Estus shard that's over to the right of the lift, getting the chunks along the way. I even went and got the Dark Pine resin as well, because that's going to be very handy for certain bosses weak to dark. And now we're connecting through the shortcut and going through barracks. This Knight protecting the soul was testing me quite a bit. I was just like, all right, man, we just gotta be careful. Just wait. Just stand still. Or even just tiptoe, but don't move too fast. He's gonna hear you. It was close, man. The other guy that was his little sidekick thing, you know, he was keen. He knew what was going on, but I got the soul. The Knight didn't chase me. We don't need any of that, because we're already gonna be being chased by other Knights. And the main reason it's actually not great is because we have to light the bonfire right there. And I wanted to just keep going all in one go, but it was a lot of pressure, and I decided to actually back off after lighting the bonfire, drop down the little ledge back to where Dancer Arena was, and then just homeward bone back to that same bonfire, because there's no way I was going to survive all that stuff getting all jumbled up. From there, it's the trek up the staircase section, and this is by far the worst. You got spear guys, you got guys shooting crossbow bolts, and yes, those crossbow bolts will kill you. So, Grabbing these chunks from these lower sections and these pockets that are protected, even with like the little walls and everything, you got to be careful. I tried my best to do that, and this is how it went. Once we actually finally made it up the bigger staircase to the bonfire, again, this stupid guy with the axe tried to axe me a question, and I didn't know the answer, so I died. Now that I got the bonfire lit, we can actually go in through the easier part of barracks, doing a little bit of the armor skip here. For anyone that actually is new and doesn't know what that is, this set of armor has a straight path of collision on it, where if you run up on a certain angle, before it breaks, you can actually get over the ledge. Now, you'd be able to get to this ledge either way, but it doesn't trigger the dragon's fire, or sorry, if we're being politically correct, the wyvern. Wyvern's fire being activated just changes some things later, so we want it to be completely untouched until we get to that area. So we're just going to run up the armor, get those chunks throughout the lower area, and then loop back around unscathed by the ninja, not even needing the crystal lizard this time. We're going to go and progress upwards. This section's fine. You do have to make it through the staircase with the bombs very, very fluidly in one swoop. You don't want to hiccup too much on the endurance or the stamina side of things. Basically, you just want to regain it when you need to and just keep moving as fast as possible. I did get the little skip off the ledge for the soul item here. And then the knight gave me a challenging scenario, and it would kill you off screen in some cases, so I was paying attention to that very well. But one problem was that I had to chug before getting the lift, meaning he was going to be a lot closer, so I was like, okay, right around the corner here, I gotta juke him out. Gonna go on the roof to get the final chunk, but we don't need red tearstone ring because we're not going to be able to survive in red tearstone mode for more than a handful of seconds. It doesn't make any sense. For now, we're gonna go and challenge old Dragonslayer. He is by far one of the most fun fights on this run because, as you guys might know if you've seen other videos I've done and just my style of playing him, I love going maximum aggression on him no matter what anyways, and it just helps because the timers on the Pilgrim Butterflies increasingly can get harder with his position and their mix-ups of doing different attacks at the same time, only really having the fountain for some of the protection, but you know, you got to really go long on the arena and go to the far end to get rid of the small meatballs, and you don't want that mixed up with lasers or bigger meatballs that you didn't hear the cue of. We're gonna kill Slayer as quick as we possibly can. He's being a bit of a turtle, a bit of a slow guy today. But as soon as we crack him open for Phase 2, things liven up a little bit. We do have some Pilgrim Butterfly action, of course. I'm always listening for the actual sound cue of the very, very big meatball, because once the small ones happen, even if I don't hear it right away, you'll see some of them come behind you if you're moving in a solid direction. Unless you're just going in circles, you'll literally see the wisps of them come behind you, and then you kind of know just to keep moving in the same direction, so no big deal there. Biggest thing you're looking for is the air cutter going through the actual stairs itself at the same time across the map. And that means you just have to keep another eye on Dragonslayer Armour too, but I kept him pretty much medium distance the whole time. That was a very, very fun fight, and super satisfying to do early with the fact we actually have good damage. So, again, he's not too bad on this run if you get ahead of the Pilgrim Butterflies. Now we gotta go and convert those chunks into our +9 on the Exile sword. All we need now is a Titanite slab to finish off with a perfect +10. But you'll see the damage is good enough where +9 could be something we use the whole game, and I'm sure it would still be possible, though I will get a fairly early slab when I can manage to do it. It's not going to be from the DLC, but I have another idea in mind. For now, it's Crystal Sage and the Dream to complete Deacons. So, back to the Road of Sacrifice Woods area, and we're going to go right to Crystal Sage. Almost getting nicked by this Harry Potter magician as well. Oh man, that was that was kind of close. My plan for Sage was going to be to parry him. I find it's one of the most challenging fights to actually successfully get them on. Well, you know, yeah, that was a fight. That was something. Cool. All right, now Deacons. You might notice that Shield of Want is now a priority on top of switching to Silver Serpent Ring every time we kill a boss, because along with Symbol of Avarice as well, all three of them are going to create a soul boost. You ever seen this dog die from a firebomb coming up here on the hill? Well, how about from the menu? Without actually having it equipped. I don't know how I pulled that off. That was actually really funny. And that's not the first time I go into the menu and use an item without actually having it on the bar. Yeah, that was cool. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. I actually really don't like doing that, but I have to. I actually entertained myself with that one. The other dog didn't chase me even though it was barking. It did have the cue where it saw me, but I was so far away at the point it tried to run that it couldn't make it around the corner. This is one of the cleanest cathedrals I've had with such unlikely circumstances with the menu thing, so very nice. I'm not going to go and activate the guys that have the Estus Shard yet, like I did last time I was over here. I'm literally just going to go and get the bonfire, and we're also not going to talk to Gale yet either. Heading straight back out the door, getting that Estus Shard, and just running Cathedral as quick as we possibly can, because it's a very big area with no bonfires in sight for a while. Surviving the Grave Warden door and not having the Grave Warden make it in the lift is a nice bonus, so I can get my shortcut safely. We're just going to go back on the ledge where the giant is, but this time, unlike a lot of others, pretty much almost every run that I do, we're not grabbing anything on this ledge. I'm not getting the Lloyd Sword Ring because, as you might realize, as soon as I put it on, the effect is immediately gone within 1 second, so I'll never be able to actually activate it for the entirety of this run. We're just going to drop off immediately with a chug right before, so we max out the health before the fall damage gets calculated. Then I have a bit more survivability into the section where the Thrall crosses over the midpoint and the giant slings some mud at me, which he decided to do. So the dagger dash can actually avoid getting hit by that because it gives you iframes as long as the blue bar still has blue left in it. After that, it's purely just a movement tool. But that's fine too, because we're going to use it as the movement tool for the second part. And that Thrall's timer was perfect because he wasn't even crossed over the quarterway point from the left. We had a big pocket on the right, and we are smooth sailing into Deacons. I was feeling so good about this entire sequence that I didn't even get the shortcut doors on the far left side. I was like, let's just go into Deacons and see if we can do it really fast. So Exile absolutely decimates the Deacons. You get one-shots on each one that is the target of interest. Only problem is its hitbox and the running attack is such a big attack that it takes out a lot of them at once, sometimes 4 at a time. And this changes their respawn timers and placements. You typically don't want Deacons to be too scattered because they're going to be coming from beside the altar, behind, on angles where you can't see them, and a lot of off-camera fireballs are going to be spawning. So that's where you want to re-wrangle them again and be a bit patient, but I had a little bit of a mix of both where I was paying attention as much as I could, got my first 4 kills confirmed, got to the back of the altar, and at this point, I realized something. Cursebro's teeth haven't been flossed since he was born. His parents didn't have a, you know, I guess, interest in a dental plan even beyond his orphaning, so we're going to floss our teeth a little bit right here with Exile. It's got the perfect angle to get right in between those guys, and now we're looking a little bit more sparkly. It's no Colgate finish here. We're not talking about charcoal whitening, but we're talking about just getting those little pieces of disgusting stuff out of there. And now that that's done, I can finally get ready to do the Pope Deacon, or as we call him, the Archdeacon. So, getting around the corner, throwing skulls, and attacking him repeatedly is the play as usual. Just making sure, though, that no fireball in general can come astray and hit me. Pope Deacon misses, I get him, and as a trophy of my success, I'm going to actually go and take his armor set, even though we're not going to put it on. I just want it. So, since the weapon upgrade level's +9 and our slab is a little far away from here, it's coming up soon, but it's still a ways away. I'm just going to be keeping the weapon exactly as is, nothing we need to do with that, but all the shrine trips in between are going to be just increasing the flask strength and count, grabbing some various items to replenish the stock of the ones we've been using. And Irithyll is next. Pontiff Bridge, super simple, don't kill the Pontiff Beast. The ring that he gives you will not really help me on Exile Sword. It's not quick enough of a weapon to activate either. I mean, maybe it could somehow, but it would take so long that I don't think it's going to happen, really. So that's a waste of a ring slot. We already are big chillin' with Flynn's Ring and Chloranthy for now. But we do want to go really quickly through the second section that we'd normally use the Young White Branch on. I don't even know if I picked up any. I don't think I did in Settlement anyways, because we were moving fast since the Giant can snipe us. So I'm just going to be moving fast like I did through here as well. And this is one of the worst running sections in the entire game to speedrun. Reason being, the flame trails from the pyromancers don't actually behave like they're supposed to. They can go in the air, curve back down to the ground, pretzel loop over their own trail that was previous, and then there's 2 different pyromancers, same time as they're doing all their attacks. The 2 Pontiff Knights that are patrolling are going to be pretty close to where they default. So there's a very tight squeeze to make it past them. Since their attacks do span very large distances, you cannot space them by running by them. It's not possible from anything I know of unless they just hesitate. So you would need a shield block from a shield one or a pivot from one that just has the regular curved sword. Cursebro has so much respect at this point. I think that the Pontiff Knight knew the origin of Cursebro and decided to let him be because he got the bonfire at Church of Yorshka nice and clean, and in the distance, he was thinking about it, but he didn't go for it though. Now we're on to the lower area with the lake. Before we stop there, I was going to go back down, but decided to just make a little bit of a beeline to the extra bone shard I forgot about behind the grave here, and we had a little bit of a chase from Birdman. Super, super, super close, man. So many close calls off screen here in this run so far, but made it, and I decided to do a little bit of like a skip over this handrail thing, just to be cool. Cursebro is really good at parkour because he has to be. One thing I will tell you, though, and this is a little clue for later, is that we cannot do any skips on boss fights whatsoever or any methods that speed them up massively beyond what the gear is that we have. So think about what that might mean. There is definitely some fights in question that apply. There's even one near the end where I'm not going to do something I typically do, and it's going to be just more straight up, but you'll see what that means. We're going to go and touch down at the Distant Manor Bonfire, which, if we wanted to now, we could go and get skulls from Patches. We can get him unlocked. I think that the amount of skulls we're going to be using is going to be perfect where we don't need to do that. But just in case, we got it. And now we're going to Pontiff, unlocking him, getting through the Centipede guys. And, you know, I will say whoever put on the chicken noodle soup today did a really good job. It was seasoned perfectly. And it actually kind of it's keeping me alive. So thank you for whoever made the soup in the kitchen there. We're going to go and make sure that we throw the skulls at really good timings for the dogs. And there's usually a time where there's an opportunity for a 3rd skull on the staircase that I usually won't do. This time I turned around immediately. I put it right beside where I was, and then just got out of there because I knew the dogs were going to chase me and it was going to be over. There's almost no chance I can guarantee trying to escape them with pure skill. Again, for anyone that doesn't know, Miyazaki dogs don't play by the rules either. What they'll do is they'll do a point-to-point location of wherever you are and teleport, and they'll even sometimes be above you. You can even see this happening if you turn the camera quick enough, but they don't actually move fluidly by running. They just teleport around and glitch out half the time, so there's no way to escape them with just being good because you're that good all the time. They will bite you eventually. Though, we have done pretty good. Pontiff is just going to be straight up pairing, and you know, he could have phase 2 if he wanted to, but we don't want him to have phase 2, so as soon as he transitions into phase 2, just hit him. Hit him a lot, let the clone do whatever it does. Look, he's only got 1 hit left, boom. That's almost a 1-cycle Pontiff, and I'm pretty sure if I played it a little bit more calculated, I probably would have gotten it to the point where you would barely see the clone spawn, but I'll take that as an amazing fight. Very, very quick, nothing to worry about. As soon as he pushes into phase 2, we're going to have to wait for parries, and we don't want to be waiting, so this works well. And then we do our little swap for bonus souls, which we're going to get quite a lot from Pontiff, and onward to Aldrich through Anor Londo. The last time I was running through the section with the Silver Knights, I did make a comment saying that there's various arrows that can go over your head, and then there's the one in the staircase at the very end that the guy can snipe you with from behind and get you at the last second. This majorly applies to heavier equip loads, so if you're above 30% equip load and your roll distance is shorter, you won't actually make it to that point in time to just completely nullify the situation. You probably will see the extra arrow. Very, very popular on speedruns where you have the Herald set on, and you have your twin blades already, and you're doing fall control, whatever you need to do. All those things delay time enough where you'll see these extra arrows, but I do want to mention if you have 30% equip load, it's much smoother. You only see about 2 of them with this method, so very safe. And, you know, I don't know why Curse Bro does. Sometimes he just likes to take over. He gets curious. It's cold outside. This dude's tongue's been dangling around forever, and now he's got it stuck on a frickin' pole, dude. Curse Bro, have you seen Christmas Story, dude? That kid's tongue's like fused to the frickin' pole when it's frozen, dude. Okay, I'm gonna have to try and pull him off of this, so. Okay, yeah, there we go. We got it. Don't be licking things randomly, especially after we flossed his teeth and everything. Now he's getting all this bacteria, even though it is frozen on his tongue, right? And he's losing taste buds in the process. Okay, now we're at the Aldrich bonfire. And one of the things I was interested in doing on this was moving through the area the typical speedrun way, where you'd go on the left-hand staircase, where the Deacons can do the triple fireball, dropping down a couple ledges right to where the chest is, where the slugs are roaming, and grabbing the Estus Shard. I tried. Even one time I got down to the other ledge, but I'm pretty sure the Deacons know I killed them in a way that was just so saucy that the disrespect they have towards me is at like a 10-fold level. It's just so potent. You can see it even. Their eyes are gleaming. I gave up on this after quite a few tries, and we went around the long way, and we still went to get the chest because I do want all the Estus Shards I can get within the vicinity. So I grabbed that, and now it's time for Aldrich with big damage, and of course, possibly even a 1-cycle. I was thinking, you know what, we got extra attacks from him in phase 1. Whenever you hit Aldrich, no matter if it's the tail or the body, if you back away from him at the right time in his recovery, you can make him queue up other attacks again, but this requires at least like a 5-foot distance or so from where his human half is. If you're behind him, he'll probably still transition a lot of the time. And you want attacks that linger a long time so that you can keep dealing as much damage to the human half since it takes more. But on this one, it was kind of a mishmash of both. We did quite a lot, and then I had one engagement in phase 2, and we had smooth sailing with the rest of the fight. It was pretty easy. I'm sure some people were like, oh, you could get Sun Princess Ring and re-heal or offset the amount of damage decrease you're getting per second. You could also stack that with Ethereal Oak Shield from the Millwood guys. No, we're not doing that. Curse Bro can't use those things. He's too cursed. So we're not mitigating the amount of drain of health at all. There is one thing I'm going to do that's actually going to add extra insult to injury that you might be able to guess later that I didn't want to start with for a couple of reasons because there is some upsides. but we'll get to that later. After not getting the Flame Trail in Irithyll, I was heavily assuming that that last Flame Witch we would ever see in the entire game might just nick me right before I get in the doorway of the Irithyll dungeon. He was also nice, so we're 3 for 3. We're in the good books with the Pyromancers these days. I like it. So touching down that Irithyll dungeon, and here is where we have an interesting scenario. So the Jailers, as you know, can drain your health. Our total health bar is decreased by 15% from Permanent Dusk Ring. Let's try being permanently decreased by 90% or so. Let's just get it down to almost nothing and then still have the health drain. That'd be fun. Yeah, we're just going to power through here as quick as we can. I'm grabbing the Pale Resin because I do find that that helps a lot for certain things as well. And upon getting down to the mid-level where we can do the skip to the lowest level, I contemplated it. I was like, you know what? We have the character where I think we can pull it off. It's just a matter of how aggressive does the health tick down by the time we land. I think we could land, but will the Symbol of Avaros kill us a second before we can chug? So I set up for it, and then I made the big boo-boo, the big no-no, and the helmet wasn't on. So you know what that means. I said as part of the rules in the beginning, I have to kill myself or homeward bone back to the most recent bonfire and do everything again, even if that was in a boss fight. So the skip was done, and it looked like it was possible, but not done properly with the curse of the Curse Bro. I went back again and tried it again. My suspicions were kind of off. So yes, you can get down there, but the second you try to chug, you die as you're chugging. It's on the wire to the perfect amount of health where you just can't do it as we're set up right now. You can kind of, but not really. I really want to do Irithyll skip because, again, Curse Bro is a parkour legend. There's a way I think that we can achieve this, though, so let's go and actually rethink this whole area and take a step away. Now I'm going to go back to Undead Settlement and clean up Curse-Rotted Greatwood in the meantime. So Curse-Rotted Greatwood obviously is no problem with Exile Sword. The thing is, those workers might just nick me in the first part off screen or come up while I'm trying to swing at one of the boluses and I can't time the escape. So I will use some remaining skulls for that. Even though this was a little sketchy, a little close, pretty simple, one of the easiest bosses in the game with damage, but go in there with almost none, and good luck, he is a little spooky. That was nice. Now we have to go and get another side quest done before I can actually see if this skip is possible. So we're heading over to Osiris next. Osiris is one of the first bosses in this run where when we hit him, yeah, the damage is high, like the number is obviously pretty up there, but relative to his total health pool, it's obviously not as big of a chunk as a lot of the other ones, even some of the mechanically harder fights. The thing with him, too, is also we don't want him to have too many opportunities to try the insta-charge, because it's just tricky to play mechanically. I've talked about it before. It just activates on frame 1. You have no startup. You actually can't use the reference of it happening to dodge it. You have to dodge off the recovery of the previous attack as a potential opportunity of it happening and just continuously prep all the time for it. So in Phase 2, we want that to be the least amount of time of the fight. The one good thing is the amount of stagger Exile does on him will keep him subdued in between, but with Osiris, the way he staggers is he actually slides forward away from you, meaning that the biggest areas on his body you would normally connect attacks with are going to be forward and farther away from you, so you got to actually hit his tail, and that's going to require a little bit of free aiming and just being crispy on the connections there. Anyone that watched the last run might remember this little dragon guy that pissed me off. He killed me randomly, and I just don't like that. And I think that there's a little bit of karma I'm going to have to encounter because of doing this right here, but I took him out right away. You'll see what I mean later. We're going to grab the Path of the Dragon Jester, and then skip this chest because I don't care about it. We don't need any other Titanite. Going to go down to the Untended Graves, and we gotta fight Champion. Champion on this is also another fight where he's the most aggressive, next to like another few bosses in the game. He's just super speed, cracked out of his mind. And that's amazing because, again, that means we can kill him fast. Not by trading attacks with him and going in between for back and forth, but just by parrying him because he throws out so many halberd attacks. Very, very quick fight. Looked amazing. And in the next section right here in Old Firelink, we finally get the coiled sword fragment, which we can trade for the slab that I was going to use to +10 the Exile sword. We'll grab those ashes right now, and we'll see where they make sense later. So I'm sure some of you knew exactly what the whole plan was for the Irithyll dungeon skip, but if you didn't, Champion gives you the Prisoner's Chain, and the Prisoner's Chain actually increases the damage you take even more. So now, not only are we taking double damage, we're taking whatever percentage that adds on to double damage on top of that, but we do get a little bit more health pool. And as you notice, if I have it on, the drain looks like it's ticking down slightly slower than it was before. You don't see the yellow, you just see red reducing, which is nice. That's a big improvement. But there is also endurance that gets increased too, and that's actually really why I wanted it. It wasn't even for the skip, because, you know, whatever, I could have just done the area normally. The more important reason was that extra endurance is really going to make a difference running through areas, and also being able to squeeze in that extra attack and escape in a fight where the back and forth is relentless. Ironically, what do you know? The plan worked, and the skip is a go, even with Symbol of Avarice on. So Cursebro successfully made it. This is one of his all-time biggest feats of parkour. It's probably going to go in the picture book. You know, I don't know why no one videotapes him. I guess they don't like how he looks on video, but we'll take a snapshot, you know, we'll put it in the album. We can get that Bone Shard by Profaned Capital Bonfire for another increase in Strength of Estus, and get ready for Yorm. At this point, I thought, why not go back to High Wall and get that Stray Estus Shard on the anvil that we left at the beginning, because it's a little bit easier now. So I grabbed that, just barely escaped, and right beforehand, I got that second Ember on the fountain, as this Winged Knight had no idea I was there. Now, Yorm, I'm sure you probably can already imagine, I said Cursebro doesn't do anything funny on fights. This is the first fight where we're not using the Storm Ruler, of course. That would be too easy. Cursebro is already pretty strong, so I think he has to prove himself a little bit. We're going to use our regular weapon to kill him, and the method of doing that is interesting. But first, fireballs. Very carefully try to not get hit by fireballs. But if you do get hit by fireballs, don't do it the same way you did before. And then if you die again, don't get impatient, because then you'll do it the same way you did the first time. Just don't get hit by fireballs at all, please. So, yeah, now that we're actually in the Yorm fight, it's mainly just trying to stagger him by either hitting his hand, or if you can get enough height in the air as he's leaning down on recoveries of attacks, actually connecting with his head. The head does more damage, of course, but the hand will get the stagger very quickly, because this weapon just deals so much stagger value. That's probably one of my favorite parts about it. It's almost like an Elden Ring weapon in that way, or even having the jump talisman with heavy jump attacks and other things, whatever. So we're going to actually do some jumping attacks, or, you know, maybe some heavy attacks here and there when we can, some running ones, a mixture of everything. And we're going to hit his hand. You'll see very, very few attacks are required. He goes down. And then what I want to do is I want to hit his head and get the max combo before getting the riposte. If you do an R2, you can actually confirm the critical, so it gives you bonus damage even beyond the regular light attack, and then you can still get the critical, and that was one of the best things I found. Oh yeah, by the way, don't get greedy on Yorm. He loves greed. He just... Do you see the throne he's on, man? Like, do you see all the stuff around it and everything? The man had them build the building where he can't even escape it because he just loves that throne so much, man. Don't get greedy on Yorm, please. Gonna grab the Xanthus Ashes from this Jailer section before heading to our magic carpet that will take us to Nameless Kingland, of course. And with the Path of Dragon Jester not actually equipped yet, I was fumbling through the Jesters, and little did I know I was literally about to kill myself in the Jester menu. I didn't expect that. The closest I came to death in just a lot of the endeavors we did. I didn't think that was going to be one of the flavors of it, so... Yeah, we saved that close call. That would have been embarrassing. And with Path of the Dragon, we're on to Archdragon Peak. Just like doing Yorm, there's no funny business on Wyvern. Wyvern has one of the best possible skips that you can do in the game for any single fight. It's got one of the best possible skips you can do for almost anything in all of Souls content, and almost in all of games, just performatively and how quick it actually activates. So if you're really, really good, you can pull this off, obviously, with any kind of weapon that has a plunging animation, and you just go on the ledge. I'll link a really quick clip from my previous run if you haven't seen it. But on this one, we're not doing that. We're going to go and challenge all the Snake Boys, Chain Snake himself, the legend, the mini-boss, the one that held the balance of fate in his hands of hitless runs before we actually decided to get good and all that. This part was just a nightmare. There's a lot of different strategies you can use because essentially Wyvern's arena is a multi-tiered environment with a variety of enemies, very condensed, and they have every option you can think of. They have magic projectiles, they have a melee weapon that has crazy distance and also retracts and does damage on the retraction. They have daggers that can spam you at close range, guys falling from the ceiling, dudes with great shields, and another guy that's big like the Chain Snake guy with an axe that we're not going to actually go and see and visit. But if that wasn't even bad enough, the Wyvern will just go to multiple different levels and breathe fire and kill you from its own breath anyways. Also, its enemies in the arena, because it doesn't even have remorse for its own enemies that it's colluding with. Weird. But yeah, I died on this so many times that I'm going to show you the bulk majority of the interesting scenarios. And, like, again, the main thought process was just speed. Get through there, try to speedrun it. Don't get hit by anything. Look and, you know, maybe as we get hurt by the projectiles, learn from them. So we know that there's one fireball that comes onward. Once we get to the upper level, there's one from behind us simultaneously. We try to turn the camera once the onward one has been, you know, loosely placed somewhere and we know where it's going to be. And then we try to dodge that one, even if it's just iframing through it as we're going the same direction. Chain Snake goes down the stairs, we try to finagle him. That's all fine. It's all good. But anytime you get to the ladder, you have a chance of one of three things happening. Fireball from the guy you didn't kill on the ledge beside Chain Snake from behind. Chain Snake's chain reaching far, hitting you in one of three places. So immediately mid-range, or on the ladder once you confirm the ladder, if you can even get up, even at the very top of it. He can even hit you through the floor if you're laggy, so this is only talking about if you're moving absolutely perfectly, the quickest you can. So if you lag a little bit, he'll hit you through the floor. The guy with the great shield will hook you on the ladder sometimes too, even though he steps beside it, making it look like he's actually harmless. You trying to hit that guy will just bonk off the shield unless he's open, which is kind of tricky, and you don't want to try to trade with him because his weapon's faster than yours to a degree. So even in the prospect of killing guys, I started to try to experiment with taking out various amounts of them and doing different things. And then I just settled for a strategy where I'm like, I'm going to kill almost every single thing here, even Chainsnake. It didn't quite work out in a linear fashion because the Exile Sword, though it is a faster strength weapon, because again, Dark Souls 3 has fast strength weapons, they're not terrible animation speeds, but you just can't beat those spammy twin daggers that these little dragon guys have. So you actually have to hit them before they start to attack. You have to hit them in the middle of their running animation, but because they can also do a lot of movement options like backpedal super far and then lunge at you. I mean, dude, the one guy, he did a front flip over my head and then tried to combo me from behind. Like, their movement's even better than mine. And then because there's two chasing you at the most crucial point before you have the ambush where they fall from the ceiling, you do have to hit them both at the same time with one attack. And then even if you get that first little stagger on both of them, you want to back off and then hit again if they're separated, but if they're together, you can try to go for consecutive swings. Now, this is where, again, you're not guaranteed because one can escape and then one will be killed, and then by the time you swing again, or even have a second to think of what's happening, you'll get killed by the other one because they're just so damn fast. And you guys know this probably better than me that have played this part quite often. You can skip some of the enemies, but you can't skip all of them if you're trying to do it perfectly and you want a high chance of survival. So, unless there's another method I'm forgetting about, please link one if there's one where you skip everything every single time, 9 out of 10 times. I'd love to see that. Chainsnake, he does start to make his way to you once you've cleared out some of the enemies, and I also dictated the one that's on the upper level shooting the backwards fireball from behind you should be taken out too, so we got the two little guys off of there, and that was a very consistent part that was pretty easy to deal with because they have to turn a corner, so they're a little bit, you know, they're delayed. Once Chainsnake makes it over to you, at mid-bridge, he can just turn sideways and walk to the wall where he doesn't care about you anymore. He's just walking into the wall permanently, and you still have the fireball guy over him trying to cover his ass. And so you need something to basically hit him with from a distance to get your attention. I can't use any other weapons. We're not putting a bow on, so the only thing I have as options are firebombs and throwing knives, which I experimented with a little bit, but then I realized best thing I could do is just run onto the bridge about a quarter way, get his view on me, and then run back before the wyvern sprays fire on the bridge and kills me. And this worked decently. I had some different encounters with him where I tried to kill him. The axe got me plenty of times in multiple ways. I even forgot about the fact that when it retracts, it does actually do constant damage too. And then at the point in which we realized that, okay, you know, Chainsnake, he's probably the least of interest if he's got a big delay or big gap on me. Let's try to go for the other enemies in the meantime. I ended up pulling him all the way down to an earlier part of the area and then getting him to do a close range attack where I just dodged by him like a normal enemy very quickly. And then there was one scenario where he actually got stuck for a second and he didn't chase me that far and I couldn't see him behind me. Then the next time he got down to the same part where I pulled him away from where he was and he chased me very, very aggressively. But ironically, in that scenario, look what happened. We make it up to the scaffolding. We have perfect timing for the wyvern's fire to clear everything with the upper sections. And as we're falling onto the final platform, he does his overhead fire breath, goes into his resting animation, and the first second I have the opportunity, I get the plunge. No questions asked. This was so stressful and it took so long that obviously this is the boss now that you guys know that killed me the most in the entire run, which is just hilarious. But I was like, yo, if I miss this plunge, I'm gonna take a break and just come back tomorrow. I was almost opting out of the one sitting for this challenge because of this right away. And I did take a pretty big break too, but it happened, thankfully. With that being done, it was just so satisfying that I'm like, okay, let's rip through some more bosses a little quicker than that. And yeah, I'm gonna die more. There's probably gonna be some stuff that kicks my ass, but it couldn't be as bad as that, so I had a little bit of a confidence boost. And I'm sure somebody's thinking, and was thinking for quite a while,
Streamer, why don't you go and get the steel protection ring? It's gonna boost your defense, so maybe you could survive some sort of one-shot when you have no armor on.
Well, it's Curse Bro. Curse Bro can't do anything like that because he's just straight up screwed. That's it. So we're gonna go back to, you know, wherever we get teleported by the magician that brings us to another area of Archdragon Peak. And also, that's something I'm actually really curious about. I want to inspect that for a second. How come this guy keeps getting teleported all over Lothric? Even when you're going from Yorm Arena to Dancer's Arena, you know, and what have you, it's like, what's this magical light teleporting you everywhere? And where can I get that as a usable spell? Because it would save a lot of time. The small stretch that you have to run to get to the bonfire right before Nameless isn't too bad, but it is pretty hectic. You got the roly-poly stone guys that we're going to actually use a skull on this time. Made it past the dragon, got to the rock really early, so when he landed, he was behind me, but the tail swipe was so close. And I actually truly believe the only reason I survived that is because on the way through Wyvern, it's the same enemy, and it tail swiped me and killed me so many times in the beginning of the fight, which I didn't show a lot of clips of, obviously. And yeah, that actually kind of prepped me for this one, because it was really close. We ended up going and getting all the way up to where the bonfire is before Nameless, and usually I'd go and grab the Dream Chaser ashes. Exile's plus 10, so there's no point of getting those ashes at all. I wanted to enjoy this fight and savor it because it was going to be so juicy with the damage. I knew on that first part it was just going to melt. So I tried to get that early hit where he flies over your head at the very intro. Couldn't quite squeeze it, even though it would have been such a nice bonus. And again, every single attack was directed towards the head or the beak so I could get in stagger and keep him from flying. I wanted to be very fast, obviously, not just for the fact that we needed it at this point, but I just wanted to be cool. We did confirm the stagger, and I actually got a nice juicy heavy attack on his head as he went down, and then still secured the crit as he was just moving away and the window was almost gone. On Nameless King's Dragon, it has a very short window to get the critical, so it's very frustrating if you're far away when you stagger it, because even without attacking additionally, it might be hard to secure. And in Elden Ring, again, they have that awesome crouch mechanic where you can teleport yourself to the point of interest from the other side of the enemy, even if you're on the wrong side of it, and link up with that little orange dot. So nothing that could quite do that from what I know in this game. But now we're on phase 2, got my health back up and everything, and the goal here is just try to, again, stack staggers in between, but I'm not going to play Nameless King anything special at all. I'm going to play him exactly how I usually would. We just can't afford to get greedy. The biggest thing you're going to see with anything in the vein of greed is really just pre-swinging, as I'm actually using the swing to move out of the range of his attack when he does the thrust, and it did allow us to progress this fight pretty quickly to the point where he does the slam with the lightning. I was so close that I dodged the bolts going across the floor, and then, you know, I decided to also be a little bit more, I guess, sparing on the combo I was going to deal to him where he's charging up the lightning, because swing speed, again, is different. Usually you do 3 attacks. You could do 4 even for some weapons, but I did 2, saved the stamina on the back end, finished him off, and that was one of the most fun Nameless Kings I have played in a long time. Now it's time to go back to Big Daddy Gale, or I guess we could call him Junior Gale for now. He's going to take us into the DLC, and there's nothing we really need for items in the DLC at all. Obviously, just the contraption key to get up to the upper levels that link up to Frida from Wilhelm, so that's normal. And we're just going to grab the bonfires to replenish, obviously. But we were just talking about skips, and I don't know if it's because I didn't ride the snow slide on the outside where the ledge is and make it look all weird and wonky like last time, or if it's just a bad day, because I couldn't get Scream Skip for the life of me. I tried 3 times. And yeah, I've talked about before what happens. You can get it where it looks like it's going to work, and then you just slide off the cliff. So here's a perfect example of me failing it and the last times I've done it, I got it without dying at all. I didn't cut out any footage. It was just completely honest. I was just good at it for some reason. There was even one first try, and even on stream you guys have seen some first tries after I had stopped practicing speedrunning type stuff. Might have been the angle I was approaching on the jump distance, and then maybe my angle with facing the rocks itself once I started to connect. But that thing in me that you guys might have too, some of you at least, where you're so stubborn that you make a rule about doing something 3 times and then it's like, no, just one more. You become the just one more guy, and sometimes the just one more guy actually prevails. So on the 4th time I got it, it felt like I had lost some sort of major skill there, and I was like, you know what, we can't even stop and think about it. Let's just keep going. Never again. Scream skip, I'm coming for you next time. I'm getting it within 3 tries, I promise you. Now it's time to go and do Wilhelm, which Wilhelm is pretty self-explanatory. Just dunk him. But I was mentioning earlier too that the controller that I've been playing with the whole time is starting to kick the bucket. The left stick, when you go into the forward direction, actually even I would say 15 to 20 degrees in the upward direction plane, it starts to kind of cut out where it'll stop your movement. It'll make you do a tiptoe or like a slight forward movement rather than full forward. And because of that, I was actually doing the inputs for kicking Wilhelm, but they weren't working. And I was wondering, I'm like, am I actually just tripping out? Like, can you not do the kick this way when the weapon or the shield is two-handed, whatever the case? But you can. The thing is, it just wasn't activating. It was doing partial inputs, and you can see how, like, once in a while I'll get the kick. I'm good enough at kicking consistently in a chain where I know if it's going to work just by the feel of it or not to a massive degree. So that was kind of tripping me up a little bit. I started to get, like, a little bit frustrated, but I started hitting him normally. Got a couple kicks in, got enough to get him into where the rocks are and dunked him anyways. It was still a slam jam, but yeah, that controller needs to be replaced ASAP. So for the rest of this, keeping an eye on that, and we're gonna pull the contraption, get up to the next bonfire, and now we gotta do the mountain pass. Mountain pass with no skulls with the wolves is really fun, but there's one particular moment where you can die very often if you're not aware of it, and somehow for me on this one, with the way I moved through it, I got into that situation, and there's a slight nuance where I had enough space to squeeze through, but typically you get to the wolves on the corner and they actually pinch you into the wall. I didn't quite line up myself to make them track me a little bit more farther from the wall so I could get in. And I was doing everything else normally after that, basically baiting out the Millwood arrow, so it hits the ground, going and iframing the explosion rather than iframing through where it actually connects, so I can space out the attack from the axe guy and have no overlap, and then we're going all the way to where Frida is. Quick touchdown at the bonfire, and then we're gonna spin the contraption to activate the fight itself. And there's no point of going out the doors and setting up Gravetender, doing Gravetender first. I'm gonna save him for later because he just made me angry in recent times. I really did not like him on that new game +7 level 1 run that we did recently. Biggest thing with Frida that I realized quite early on is, yes, we can interrupt her attacks, we can chain about 2 attacks together before she poises through, like a lot of different weapons will, since she's very, very loose with her movements. She's not like a solid statue until she cues an attack that has crazy poise. The problem is actually the spacing. So my base swing on Exile will just barely actually touch her, and to the point where when she comes back in and you'd normally be able to actually interrupt her attack from a distance coming towards you, you actually miss. You fall a bit short, and then she trades and gets you right after. So I failed a little bit on actually spacing with her, doing straight up attacks, opted to try to go for more backstab based scenarios as well. And then, ironically, we had this situation where it was a draw. So, GG Frida, 1-1 on phase 1 right there. But, as soon as I got into phase 2, immediately parry spam to get her to come towards me. If you guys don't know, Frida input reads on phase 2, so you can actually get her to come towards your position by repeatedly spamming parries with a shield, throwing different consumable objects. This is just the game's way of letting her try to punish you while you're doing an action that's not combat-based, in the easiest way possible, and making her more aggressive, which actually makes her harder at close distances, but farther away it pulls her away from Ariandel. And then I get this nice situation where when he's doing his bowl swingy thing in the corner, she's lingering farther away, and all I have to do is look for ice trails. But because Exile also hits crazy damage on him, she immediately goes into healing after the first engagement, which I don't see that often at all. That's typically just on big damage runs and speed runs. So, even though we didn't get the best RNG, the first attack not being the fire breath but being the bowl swing, great setup, We got a backstab on Frida. Biggest thing we're looking for after the backstab is not having lingering frames from any explosion Ariandel's doing on the wake up when we actually become hittable again. So we want to make sure he's not overlapping in a weird way, but I went for it YOLO. There's a lot of YOLOs I did on this because of the style. I did it for you guys and for myself a little bit, you know, a little bit for the greediness in all of us. And it worked out decently. We were able to get Ariandel nice and smooth, but there was some frost buildup I had activate. Luckily, that wasn't enough damage to kill me, and none of the actual explosions of the ice spikes got me. Free to phase 3, circling and starting with the backstab, and then our follow-ups have to be kind of careful here, because if we do too lingering of an attack or we overcommit for the stamina, she will outpace us when it comes to the range of her combos and lock us in. This is still the point where, again, if we have the Exile sword on with Cursed Bro's Symbol of Avarice, we're so heavy that we're not able to actually roll really far, and Vitality, again, is going to have to be increased a lot to get that light roll effect, where it almost is like we're just moving super fast and we don't have the helmet at all. So I got to be careful. But one really cool thing, though, is you can snag these super crispy backstabs because of the shorter distance, where if you roll from a farther distance away and then use her body to actually stop the roll a little bit and peel into her, you can pivot very quickly and lock her into a backstab right before she actually leaves, and it almost kind of looks like a magnet where you bring her back a little bit. On the longer rolls, you'd actually have to set up from a farther distance, and it would be a lot harder to justify this. So I love medium roll on Frida for backstab opportunities that are very last second, but in the wake of all the combos that are right in front of you, you really can only leverage the big attacks in the air and anything that's backstabbable from a distance. Getting to Gravetender on this particular run reminds me of how the guys probably felt in that Call of Duty mission All Gillied Up, where you and McTavish are just the most elite snipers you've ever seen, and they have no chance. It's probably like them running for their lives, just trying to zigzag in between the crossfire of your Barrett 50 cal quick scope in their asses. But these Millwood guys don't play around. They're expert Olympian level javelin tossers, and once you get to the actual bottom with the ice, and you're trying to get to the bonfire, there's still even an opportunity for the one on the farthest side to actually sneak and slip a little bit of javelin right by the root and get you. So I try to line up the root where he's actually blocked and he throws it at the ground instead. Keep an eye on him until you actually get to the arena, because there's this weird zone where right before you fall down the ledge, he will throw a javelin at you last second. The wolves in the beginning are going to be a one-shot regardless of if I buff my weapon or not, and the way I like to actually line them up to do these kinds of setups with the one-shot is you go on the pillar that is just off to the right a little bit, not the one that's like completely right of the circle, but we'll call it 5 o'clock or something like that, and then as they peel around the corner, they'll have this barking animation they do on the startup right away, and you don't typically see this if you wait too long because they're just going to chase you. So as they stop, boom, as soon as like the one gets right to you and you see it, you can swing into its range as it's running up. The other ones that run a little bit further and everything, again, they'll try to run around you. You just do a swing and you can kind of directionally influence it, tilt it behind you if you need to, but it kind of consolidates them all in a little bubble. Now with Gravetender though, I was debating, do I want to do a back and forth where I just hit him when he's open to have more of a PvP based fight, or do I want to only wait for the backstab opportunity? I did go for a little bit of both to see what was better. I found that it was really cool to actually run in and do a heavy attack, a running heavy attack, albeit when he does his running heavy attack and thrust. When I'm setting up the damage here, once we trigger the actual Great Wolf, it's so deep into his health that we barely have to do anything else to finish him off. Just 2 swings and he's dead. And he even panic rolls and roll catches himself in my light attack to end that era of his reign of being the champion of the arena. Great Wolf is just super, super weak to stagger on this, to the point where we don't see anything crazy happen. It's just a regular back and forth, being patient, loading up those hits until he goes down, and as soon as he staggers, it's over. So what I like to do is try to space the double bite attack unless I'm cornered into a wall to save some stamina, so I can swing and then be ready for the next opportunity in case it's the big head attack where he does the uppercut, because you can actually do a roll attack and then punish with one more after that very safely. Or if you're very, very keen on being to the wire, you could do 2 regular attacks. We're not going to have to deal with Frost Breath or anything of that nature. As we've been scooting along through Firelink, doing our upgrades in between everything, we got our strength to 50, which is 10 shy of what I believe the hard cap is of 60 for this weapon. But the vitality still needs to be increased even more, and it's matching strength at 50 now. Still not enough, though, to be as light as I want to with equip load, so we're going to just keep boosting it, and this is the point where we're going to boost it even more than the strength. And maybe if we have some time and we have the souls, we'll come back to strength later at the very end of the game. But DLC 1 is done. As you might remember, I didn't actually do archives yet, so Princes and Cinder are still lingering. We've done the easy bosses of Tree Balls and Old Demon King, or Old Demon Cripple, as some might say. And all the other mandatory things are done, as well as Archdragon Peak. So all that's left is DLC 2, Princes and Cinder. Princes and Cinder I'm going to save till the very end, though, because I want to end on a cutscene. And saving Princess for late's something I haven't done in a long time, but it's very viable because we have the Titanite slab already. There's no point of running archives for the material or anything. Might as well save that excursion for the very end. Once we get to Dreg Heap, I'm going to immediately beeline for the Silver Serpent Ring +3. That's going to multiply the amount of souls we're going to be getting from everything absorbed even more than the regular Silver Serpent Ring, and it really does come in handy to get that vitality up aggressively, because the cost of leveling at this point is ridiculous. So first thing, Silver Serpent, get that hidden wall and grab it on the balcony over here before the angel section. Don't even have to worry about the pod guy. I'm just going to let that angel spew his beams and have his fun, and then we'll for some reason pick up this item and almost get killed by the drag off screen as this giant blue and black thing almost clips me. But yeah, that was exciting. Now to light the bonfire down here, and this is where I want to try another skip. So one of my favorite skips in the game next to Scream Skip is Angel Skip, because all it requires is regular parkour, lining up, jumping, and timing. I'm not a huge fan of skips that involve many other things, like out of bounds with weird types of things, and you're floating in the collision boundary before the kill boxes, or you're trying to get something to actually clip you through the ground, like Partake, where the guy grabs you and then puts you on a tile that sends you through the floor in the right part and all that. That's just ridiculous. They're cool to look at when they go well, but they just absolutely suck to do. And the hardest part with Angel Skip is the angel actually shooting beams at you at the same time, which obviously with Curse Bro, he'll die very, very fast. He'll probably die from one beam. So we're going to try to be as quick as we can going over this ledge, gapping the part where you'd normally walk up the path to Angel Skip so we can save some time. And as his next combo's going out, I'm going to line up with the cage, try to jump. What did I say? The angel ripped us apart with the beams right after. Not a surprise. I'm going to keep trying again. And you know what? If it doesn't go too well, we will just go the normal way. So this one really truly is the third time's the charm kind of thing. So I fell down into the little cavern with the thrall underneath. I escaped him, waited for another timer on the angel to work out for me, and yeah, that was the best I could do. I think the biggest thing with Angel Skip for me is that you quit out on speedruns to make the delay of the actual attacks a little easier to time, so that when it starts doing the beebs, you've already had enough times to do, at least one good attempt with a good lineup, taking it slightly slower. And you really got to jump from the ledge, get into the pocket where the cage and the wall meets, and then what's going to happen is the collision will actually keep you floating in that little corner, and then you just do a jump, and you can jump right over the cage, and it just looks like you landed on something and jumped. And yeah, but very, very pinpoint precise. So maybe next time I'll be able to include that in another challenge. I'll keep going for it for anything that doesn't require dying as a restriction, or, that's not hitless. Once I hit the bonfire for Demon Prince, I was just contemplating exactly how I wanted to do the fight. I was debating, do I want to do Laser or do I want to do Meteor? And then if I did Meteor, am I ready to do it with no skulls for the small fireballs? Because if you didn't know, they can actually take the little fire portals he opens and be the point of interest instead of you. At that point, I decided, yeah, we're going Meteors on this one. Laser's been featured too many times. I got to go for the harder one. As soon as I get in there, I'm doing my thing. The whole goal is basically that you're targeting the demon that's aggressive immediately, and you're trying to step over the line of the purple before it explodes, obviously. And the best way I can find doing that while still dealing damage is actually using your attacks again to move instead of actually moving the character away from it, unless your timing is off. It's a lot of lineups with just knowing exactly the spacing opportunities and the recovery timers of the demons respectively when they're aggressive, and then just knowing that the line takes about, I would say, a full 5 seconds to resolve into an explosion from the time it's starting to be lit on the ground. So that was very, very key in the beginning to get an early stagger, and when you get the early stagger, you're just cooking. Unfortunately, it didn't work to my advantage right away, but in due time, I got the attempt where you get the early stagger, and then if you can iframe with the stagger while hitting the demon in the critical attack, the next one will either plow through you and miss you, or it'll just be out of range. Worst thing you can have is it lines up an attack as soon as you are hittable from being invulnerable in the crit, and it kills you. But the YOLO on this one's a little safer and more consistent than a lot of the other ones, because you can kind of go for it by waiting a second as he's in the crit animation where you can cue it, and then seeing what the other demon's going to do. You wait a little bit of extra time to make him do something in general, then you go for it, and it's very unlikely. Similar to the idea of there's some doors in the game where you can open them and every single time you'll escape, but it looks like an enemy can get you. I would say the Grave Warden and Cathedral's the exact opposite example. It will get you sometimes, but there's some where on stream I've been doing runs where you guys have seen them and you're like, are you just like trying to flip a coin on that door? And I'm like, no, it's going to work every single time. It just doesn't look like it will. In the very beginning of Demon Prince's startup, it's possible you guys have seen this before, but if you haven't, if you're newer to the game, what I like to do is basically rotate towards his tail. And what you want to do is you want to start off on his foot on the, I guess it would be his right side. And every single time he inches and turns himself a little bit, you move towards the tail. You don't keep moving constantly. You stop every time he stops, and then you move every time he moves. And he keeps searching for you, which preloads a lot of damage as you're attacking doing this in between. And when he starts his actual phase in general and starts his first attack, you already have damage done to him and you've preloaded stagger. This helps a lot, but even if you don't secure that stagger, you just have a little bit of work into phase 2 done already, and then it makes it a bit more simple. Everything else in all the exchanges here are pretty straight up with just how you'd normally deal with the attacks, with the caveat that because we're doing meteors now and we have Curse Bro and one fireball touching me might be the end, since we have Calamity Ring giving double damage, Prisoner's Chain giving even more damage on top of that, the Drain, and it could be a counter hit while running. That was scary because the meteors that he actually triggers, they do get diminished a bit where they become a smaller area once you stagger him out of the big charge up. But as they're falling though, I'm just right on the cusp of it, so it was very, very close. That was one of the most satisfying fights so far, being that it is slightly longer, but you can cut down the time significantly with staggers, being able to, again, space a lot of the attacks and be in areas where he just can't reach you since he's such a weird-shaped character model. Now we're just going to run straight to where the next bonfire is, not even touching the one in his arena because I was feeling so good. But, again, time's ticking, so we got down to the second part of Ring City here. Now it's time to go through the arrow guys, and wow, would you look at that. Some arrow came from behind, and I slipped it somehow. That was purely luck. I actually didn't even know that was happening. I would love to say it was a sound cue or something, but no, that was actually just lucky. Crystal Lizard on this ladder was nice enough to kill itself for me, but unfortunately I don't need any of the materials. Finagle the pushy guy that tries to shove you off the ledge. There's no chance he's going to get Curse Bro. He's a little too nimble now with all of his experience. Gonna get the inner wall bonfire for later. And then we're traversing down the section where the crawly boys like to spawn rings out of the ground, and we got the big butthole faces with also curved greatswords that kind of want to just, I guess, test me because they see I have a curved greatsword and they're feeling insecure. But I know their whole moveset and typically when it comes to the circles on the ground, you're moving constantly. You don't want to stop. Even on the chandelier, you want to make quick movement. Every single roll you do on the heralds, which are the butthole face guys, is mainly just going to be a mix-up of a quick slash single-hand attack, a double-handed butcher chop attack, the overhead attack that's slow as well, where they step forward and kind of get some distance on you. And if you can kind of just figure out exactly what the interplay of the first two will be, because they can kind of cross over a little bit, the next ones are fine. They're very easy to deal with. Lightning bolt guy you want to be obviously running past immediately, and then you're in the good books. And once I got to the rooftops, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to go on the right side. I'm going to go on the left, see if I can string out Judicator Argo's spawns of the phantoms. And he didn't spawn arrows again at a point where it was kind of critical. He did put a bunch of Leto guys on the ground. I believe it was just the Leto hammer dudes in the background, which are a little too slow. Other than that, there's enough spacing to get the shortcut door. And then I just backpedaled right back without even touching down again to the Midir Bridge. I wanted redemption on the initial iframe of the fire when he blows it on the bridge. This is one of the hardest things in the game for me to personally do. I can't say I've practiced it a lot because there's almost no run where you would really need to do it other than runs that are speedy. And even if you screwed it up on a speed run, it wouldn't cost you a record if you had everything else fairly clean. So I'm just truthfully not that great at it. But what I didn't account for is, though, even though I got it here, the actual tick damage from the residual flame after was so high that I was like, if I get 2 ticks, I'm dead. So I got kind of lucky rolling again after that, not getting the second tick, and then everything faded from the damage calculation right at that point. Chugged up, was like, you know what, I'm not dealing with any kind of residual fire again on the second part, so I delayed just slightly enough to get around the guy that throws the lightning bolt at the door. And then the flames were fading as I went through there. It was very close because there was another flame breath that came through right after. We peeled the staircase, of course, up to Midir, and the one nice thing about Midir Bridge with this weapon is you basically get a 1 cycle on him. You could say that his freak out combo that he has is technically like a phase 2 of the mini fight that you have here. We don't even actually have to see that. We just do so much damage that it's purely just fire and lasers, and the sweet spot where you stand on the rock on the edge of the cliff, and no matter what he does, if you kind of go back to that as home base, you're completely safe right here. We're hitting his wrists quite a bit, his elbow, and then just repeating that with lightning resin. All you need is the crit after that, and he's dead. But again, the damage is so high that there's not even a little bit remaining in the bar when he falls down. It's just pure kill. Then we're going up to Inner Wall Bonfire from way back in the DLC again, very, very quickly because we've been moving swiftly through this. We're going to link up the lift so we can have Half-Light, Midir, and Gale ready. I want to save Midir for later. I'm going to do Half-Light first, just get it out of the way, rip off the Band-Aid. I have no idea how he's going to go. The only thing I know is that for the Painting Guardians, their survivability will be less because I'm going to hit hard from one single attack at least. This weapon's pretty good at roll catching just because it's such a middle-of-the-road speed that they'll roll, but usually with quicker weapons, they would already actually escape and iframe your attack. But with this one, even if you actually don't pre-plan it, it does actually catch them a lot better, just similar to how I got Grave Tender at the end of the Phase 1. I did actually confirm the backstab on the first Painting Guardian, which, again, I'm not the greatest at. I do fail it, I would say, 40 to 50% of the time at best. And I didn't use the ponytail trick, which is there's a little ponytail on the back of his head. It lines up perfectly straight with his back right before he actually can attack you and before he becomes active. If you get it right when it's straight, probably a fraction of a second, you confirm the backstab every time. Killed him very quickly right away, which is usually the case, but the second Painting Guardian active, while Half-Light's active, is more dangerous. Half-Light himself, I made sure I didn't tiptoe on any of the spears coming out of the ground in bow phase like previous runs that I had done before. So there's no chip damage because that would have been crazy. And, confirm some backstabs on him. Luckily got the wake up, which was actually really good because Half-Light's really good at escaping wake ups from on the ground. Second Painting Guardian comes in, and this was pretty calculated up to the point where I got chipped down to almost no health, and then I was actually right beside a pillar, which is just happenstance. I wouldn't say this was planned at all. So I will say I got super lucky the Painting Guardian didn't aggressively rush me sooner or shiv me on the angle where I got behind the pillar. At that point, I was able to heal. I kind of regained my, you know, my focus and all that upon taking him out, and then it was just me and Half-Light. And one of the best things about this weapon, I was saying way earlier, is the running attack on it's really good. It's incredible for PvP. It's almost on the same level as some of the longswords, I would say. And because usually I prefer to do Half-Light with the Twin Blades or a longsword type weapon, it feels very similar. So because it travels a very far distance, has okay reach, it wasn't sketchy to try to interrupt him every time he did his overhead attack. And that was the way I took him out for the rest of it, other than just backstabbing the bow phase to finish. Now that that's over with, there's just nothing else that could be goofy in terms of feeling kind of cheap. Like, everything else is straight up. It's just actually pure skill. And if I screw up anything else, it's just me being goofy, and I'd prefer that. I'm going to do Gale before Midir, just save Midir for last. It'll be a little bit more chill, I'm thinking at least. Gale, the whole thing is usually using poison. Cursebro doesn't have the privilege of using poison this time. Didn't pick up poison resins. I did get the knives early on because I was debating some of the extra rules we could say on this, but I'm not even going to use the throwing knives to poison him. We're just going to do straight up damage on him and have a regular fight like gentlemen. And Gale, he is very spammy with his combos. He'll basically outpace your endurance very quickly. So if you have a weapon that takes a lot of endurance per swing, that's one factor right there. But the one thing that actually helps a lot, again, he staggers in about 3 hits consecutively from the Exile sword. And there'll be times where it looks like he doesn't just because it overlapped a little bit or the timer faded. But it's actually so frequent that not only can you interrupt certain combos he does, making the fight in time-wise get cut down by a massive amount, but in the next phase you can actually cancel him doing the arrows more often and a lot of the bigger attacks like the discs. Gale wasn't perfect right off the bat. I didn't just get the one try, the one and done. I got good at least dodging the arrows close range on phase 2, which was something that I kind of lost the ability to do in the last challenge we were doing. So that was super nice. Didn't get nicked by arrows in phase 2. And then it's just mainly just the extra attacks from his cape, trying to actually run backwards from his second swing he has in his 3-piece combo so that I can get back in on the thrust, where the spacing was just on the edge of his blade. A lot of this, again, is affected by my equip load and everything, so we're still trying to get to that level where it's very crispy, but we're making do with where we can. And I got him into phase 3 very, very quickly. There was a really close call on one of the setups with his explosion and him traveling across quite a bit of the map, I actually got into the range where when the little orbs turn into lightning beams themselves, I could have gone in a direction, panicked, and then just got shocked by that, died, no problem, but I escaped that, and there was nothing else super close, although he did do a lot of the airborne crossbow attacks with the overhead follow-up that somehow I hadn't had him do in a long time, or just very, very few of, if even. So there was a lot of those repeatedly. I didn't have recent practice on that either, so that was freaking me out a little bit, because all you have to do is basically look at one or the other and you're screwed. You look at the attack, you get hit by the arrow, you look at the arrow, you get hit by the attack. If you don't account for where you need to actually be placed at the same time as framing the last part. Gale being done makes me feel like everything else is going to be a cakewalk, but you'd be surprised. There's actually some things in store that I didn't expect after this. So I didn't want to get too eager, but I did. And then, you know, on Midir, yeah, we went down there and we got a 1500 plus combo on the beginning that you can only get the very first time you attempt him because he's actually sleeping. But other than that, can't do it again if you fail, so had a little bit of the advantage. This fight with Midir was the most aggressive I remember playing him ever with a weapon that wasn't Sellsword Twin Blades on a speedrun. It looked amazing. I was even going for bundles purely because I was like, I want to have the flashiness, I want to have more damage of that, and they're efficient because you can actually buff while running or roll recovering, and then go into attacks from the roll recover with the buff immediately. Unfortunately, the greed got ahead of me. I was saying before how in the Abyss Watchers fight of the previous run we were doing, there's a little bit of a system when you get to more aggressive bosses where it's like red light, yellow light, green light. Red light means there's no way you would have been able to get away with it. You were just in over your head. Yellow light means that you can squeeze the timer, but you're literally framing the next thing they're doing if you do the input and you buffer it, so it's not even in real time that you actually dodged it. You actually preloaded it. The next second you get out of it. Green light means you actually have wiggle room where you can wait a second and then still dodge, or you can go maximum combo and then yellow light it after. I was yellow and red lighting Midir to a point where I got lucky on some of the things I actually just did survive that could have easily been death, and then, yeah, the greed got me. So we went back, we had some more trials and tribulations. Eventually I decided to do a regular lightning resin that's constantly going, and then adding in the bundles when I think it makes sense to get the extra damage. And I didn't get nicked by the magic, luckily. He did get me with a slide in between, unfortunately, but then I got redemption because when he overlapped all of the dark orbs with the slide the next time, it's a little bit of a harder scenario. I finally proved myself on that one, proved myself to Cursebro, who is the legend at this point, who's really carrying the torch. And then to finish it off, I did get the crit, and it wasn't a sloppy fight where we were going back and forth to the last second. For Archives at this point, typically when I go through it and I'm not playing a super methodical, stealthy method of any sort, it is just to the wire, and you can die pretty easily even with normal health that's not ticking or anything. So I would say that one of the most consistent and best things I can do in the entire game would be running through Archives. I decided to go, instead of up the ladder, the leftmost staircase with the first Wax Mage, lining up with the crystal little orbs from the Sage that's right behind him. The Thrall did the delayed overhead, but it didn't get stuck on anything, so there's a double scenario there where if he actually gets stuck turning the corner, he wouldn't be able to match up with you even if you just kept running, but he had the perfect tracking on me, where I was dead if I didn't just know when he was going to release the attack. That is probably the hardest part of the first section in general. Gargoyle gave me the worst possible attack, which is the delayed uppercut while floating, but the thing that he does sometimes that gives you a little bit of luck is he'll actually miss where you are. So even if I didn't do anything, I think I would have been fine here. Just in case though, because he can follow it up with the thrust, and if he's still on the roof, he'll thrust into the actual balcony. So I went through the first doorway, and this makes it a bit more complicated because the knight on the inside will chase you. Luckily, he didn't do a thrust off screen. I didn't actually get a look at him at all. Went through the rest of the part, and then I realized again, no alluring skulls for this part is a little crazy after everything we just did, because we'll have to do it again. There is no actual shortcut at this point we can get that makes sense to skip the hardest stuff. It's after that point. So there's the Three Stooges, we got Axebro, we got the Crystal Magic Gal, and then we got our buddy that just somehow will get you with ranged options. And I was like, okay, now I don't actually know where the arrows are coming from because I'm in a different position than I usually would be, because I go through this area pretty fluid. And that was a little bit of guesswork as well. I could say I got kind of lucky on that part with the crossbow section all intersecting until I made it to the midpoint of the staircase. And then something really funny happened that was also just through all the Lothric Knights while they were still blocking the door, and then two of them did a thrust attack, the most minor delay, but almost at the same time, and I framed both of them with one roll. Now we're in the Prince's Arena. So there's some options we could do. We could Homeward Bone right away when the fight's activated, escape the fight, and then reactivate it so that we could do the cheese method at the Fog Gate. Of course, Cursebro would never do that. He's too honorable. So we're just going to go into the fight, let him drop down and teleport immediately. He gave me some hard situations right away, which I'm glad I actually could react to. I was saying before, every time he does the quick drop, my chances of dodging that nowadays is very low without just going back and practicing it over and over again because it's so sudden. I was like, we could go to the Fog Gate and separate the orbs from Phase 2 until he actually teleports over to us and have a clean fight, or I could just go aggressive and then try to deal with him while the orbs are raining down on me all in the same area. The method of doing the Fog Gate and everything, I was like, no, Cursebro can't do that either. He's got to go YOLO. So for some reason I locked off and tried to strafe the magic, which you never want to do because then you're purely guessing what's happening, because he'll appear off screen a lot of the time, do an attack you couldn't possibly see or hear, and then it's just a matter of did you randomly roll at the right time. That didn't work out too well. We went back, repeated steps 1 through 2, and then on the third step there with that magic, I did a similar thing again, and it kind of worked. And I want to just stress that the easiest way you could actually get away with trying to get the orbs to not hit you and also keep track of where he's going to teleport and deal with the attack when he appears is you literally just have to have him centered and then strafe right or left across horizontally as the orbs are coming, and then pay attention to how he readjusts the camera tracking as he appears, because it's going to curve the camera and then you're going to be moving a different direction even if you're holding the same button. So you just have to readjust that direction as soon as he appears to still account for the orbs, and you can strafe all of them and only purely roll his attack. This is incredibly hard, and it works a lot of the time if you do go over it a lot, but there's not a real reason for people to do this that often, so I would say that like most people probably aren't going to be dialed on it.
Remain among the accursed.
Back to Firelink, placing all of the ashes, getting a couple of what I would say is middle of the road ash skips, where the character doesn't just pop off of the ledge and skip with the thing illuminating. He kind of like has his foot on the edge for a second but falls sooner than the normal timer, which I'll take a half skip over no skip, and it is environmental, so Cursebro knows his shit there. And then we're gonna go and Homeward Bone out of the alternate kiln to get to the actual area where Cinder is. If you didn't know, you can do this in the buffer for the cutscene where it goes black. You can't see the actual Homeward Bone, but if you press X and then down and then A, and it's already highlighted in your quick bar, you'll homeward bone before you appear, and then you'll just appear where Cinder is. That's the easiest way to save the most time. I didn't really need to do that. We have enough time to spare to just chill for a second and then show you the normal way. Cinder was something I thought for sure was just going to be a first try. I've killed him with Exile Sword before. You know, he's not necessarily a fight that takes long because it's always back and forth, but with stagger included, even if he gives you curved sword phase and waste time, even if he were to heal, I'd be able to stagger him out of the heal. And as soon as he goes down, you don't need a dual charm to cancel it. Just the stagger itself will actually eliminate any effect on his body. But greed, man, just so greedy. It looks amazing to fight Cinder exactly how I'm doing this, but like it's basically overriding the stamina to the point where at some point you can't actually keep doing this level of aggression without something happening, and it would just be pure luck if you didn't get punished at the point where I did right there. So even going back, and I'll show you guys some other examples where I do similar levels of aggression on him and I get away with it, there's a little bit of a nuance where I'm either rolling kind of sloppy so that I can do the attack sooner before the next one happens in half frames, or I'm accounting for the fact that where I'm positioned will allow me to strafe or space that backhand swing on the triple combo, or I'm running around the overhead attack to get that pre-swing and then maybe even fit a second one. But you don't want to necessarily even swing twice on a lot of the regular sword phase attacks he does. You definitely can on the magic phase for sure. And then on curved sword phase, it's a no-go. I wouldn't even punish it unless you want to roll into him on the second rotation with the fire circle and then do your little circle attack out of the roll, but then immediately buffer rolls right after so you can escape, because it's going to be tricky. But anytime on curved sword he does something like poison or the power within or whatever, charge up a heavy attack, maybe have a moss on you in case you do get that poison activated, and that's golden because it gets way more damage right there and it does load the stagger even sooner. So we got him into phase 2. And on this one, I was talking about last time how the speediest method that I would usually recommend if you're trying to be super aggressive is as he starts up his combo, right before he does the juggle that will just get you, go in for an attack. I was a little greedy on that one in the form of not spacing it on the exit. But let's rewind. You run into the explosion on the outside of the circle. As it's fading, it's not going to have a damage calculation. It's just that first burst, so it looks scary, but it works. You go in for your running attack, you back up, you rebuff, and then you do the exact same thing again on the explosion after the juggle. Everything else is pretty standard. I'm strafing any attack with the two-hand sword that I can to squeeze in a hit. And I am actually just rolling straight up into the lightning bolts that get sent into the ground with the lingering damage, because I just want to get every single hit in as soon as I possibly can. And my real goal was actually eliminating him throwing the lightning in the sky on this one and just skipping that phase altogether. Very, very, very satisfying Cinder fight, but just needed to be a bit more careful. I think this is a run a lot of people can actually try. It's going to be very tricky in the beginning, and it depends on like what you're allowing as some of the more minor rules. I would say if you go in with the same 3 major principles of Symbol of Avarice, Dustcrown Ring, and then double damage from Calamity, that's a good starting point. Then you can do whatever you want after that. But if you really want to try it the same way I did with whatever your weapon of choice would be, give it a go. And even if it takes you, again, 4 or 5 times longer, maybe you're way quicker, it's going to be fun no matter what, because it's a different type of gameplay, a different type of pressure, and it makes you think a little bit differently too, especially if you haven't speedran. So I encourage you guys to try it. This was so much fun. If you guys want to see more weird challenges like this, maybe give some ideas in the comments. Let me know what your favorite part was, and make sure that you're notified for future videos so you don't miss them, and also subscribe as well. Thank you so much, everybody.